Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino, and I'm back one more time to talk about the third of three tribes we're going to meet here in Survivor 49. And I'm so excited to be back here with a man who went all the way to Fiji to meet them all. Give it up for Mike Bloom.
Yes, Rob, elated to be talking about Hina and Hura, everyone on the Hina tribe with Yua and Mia.
Mike, I'm so thrilled to be here. And I feel like that something has shifted since the last time we got together because we talked about the first tribe and the second tribe. People are like, whatever, Survivor 49, when is that starting? But I don't know. I feel like that this week, people are like, hey, it's Survivor season, baby.
Yeah,
Big brother, what?
exactly. I think that maybe it's the back to school feel.
Maybe.
The post Labor Day. We're officially in September. I'm sure there were no other major occurrences that happened in the
Hmm.
world of CBS reality TV that had everyone turning their eyes to the islands of Fiji. But regardless,
Yeah.
we are happy to have everybody here as we wrap up our preseason series a couple weeks before the season proper
My
premieres.
mentions flooded with, hey, when does Survivor start? People are so excited to get into Survivor 49 now.
Yeah, and Australia versus the world just
Mhm.
concluded too. There is no better time to get into the Survivor 49 beat than right
Finally,
now, people are saying.
Survivor 49 says, finally, this is our moment.
Exactly. Take the dive, to quote a previous preseason quote.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about this Hina tribe. And of course, if you missed any of Mike and I's previous previews of these tribes, we did the other two tribes. All 18 interviews are out as podcasts on YouTube. Mike, is all your stuff out on Parade yet?
It should all be out on Parade. I got some compilation stuff coming out just to assemble things in one handy dandy place. But yeah, we have basically everything you need to know about these contestants. So whether you are again catching up maybe in retrospect, if you're trying to know as much as you can about these contestants before any drafts you might be doing, or just to get to know these people before you watch them on September 24th. Now you've got 2 weeks to do so, Rob. Again, extra long preseason. We're leaving plenty of, for lack of a better term, wiggle room for people to get to know all of these cast members before the show premieres.
Okay. So we also will get into not only every player individually, we will also then put them all together. I've got visual aids, and we will talk about that all as we get ready to talk about the Hina tribe. So, Mike, do you want to set the stage at all with this tribe where that this was the tribe where we have alternates who
Yep.
are coming in, who's out, who's in?
Yeah, so I do feel like even just looking at this tribe on paper, now that you sort of get a sense as to what all three tribes are, Rob, I'd be intrigued to get your perspective as to, like, do you think there is a disaster tribe? I still feel like it feels fairly balanced. I think we have talked about in basically each of these podcasts so far, like, if this tribe is the disaster tribe, what happens? I do feel like this tribe really has a lot of high variance where it could go in a direction where if you look at this six sum, it is a bit of like an odd mismatch of a bunch of different personalities. You have like incredibly physically strong people in MC and Matt. Maybe you have some people that are not known for their physical game, like Jason, like Kristina, who have both admitted as much. So honestly, there could be equal chances of like them absolutely floundering and going the way of a similar yellow tribe that we saw a couple of years ago on Survivor, or they could gel together incredibly well and, pull a Nami and just basically dominate the entirety of the pre-merge. I don't know if there's anything in between, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that dominating the pre-merge comes at the expense of a total implosion once you hit the post-merge, but we don't have to focus on that part of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about what you mentioned here, Rob, because this was a major story that came out once the cast release that has only been elaborated on over the course of the past couple of weeks. There was an unprecedented situation that happened in Survivor 49.
Yes.
They say curveballs get thrown your way on Survivor, but I don't think production expected one to get thrown at them as large as this one, as 12 hours before Survivor 49 kicked off, two people were ultimately dismissed from the main cast, and the two on-site alternates, which were Jason and MC, were brought on to round out this cast of 18 players. Now, when Jeff talked with myself and Dalton Ross, there was admittedly some vaguer language, I should say, as to the reasoning as to why this happened. He said it was specifically a pregame rules violation. I can say that since then, Jeff did an interview with TV Insider, shout out to Kelly Boyle, about that, where he was more specific as to what exactly the situation was.
Okay.
Said in this interview, quote, "When we finally put you on the show, we promise you that we will give you everything we have to create an adventure that will change your life. And all we ask is a couple of things. And one of them, please don't talk to each other before the game starts for obvious reasons." And they were warned. This was not out of the blue. They knew what they were doing and they were wanting it. And that's just a bad idea. I'm glad that word is spreading because I don't think it will ever happen again. I think both players probably regret it, but it left a mark, and that was the intention. And so I can confirm that from what I have been told, these two people were released from the cast indeed because they were
Mm-hmm.
a heavy amount of explicit pregame communication to each other.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if this is a situation that may have been building for years, and I had read a book where I'm not sure which like I don't know if it was who this was, but they this like military general like had all of these people that they were trying to instruct in the army, and they weren't listening. They were like goofing off, and then they said, okay, well, execute them. And then
Make an
the
example,
next,
yeah.
yeah, or I think they actually I think they executed the general that was in charge of them, and then everybody was like in tip top shape after that. So I feel like I don't know maybe if they did for Survivor 50 or what, but once you do this once, people are like, okay, I'm on the straight and narrow now.
See, that's the thing is that, and again, I'm glad that Jeff was a little more specific in subsequent interviews to underline exactly what happened to inform future contestants. Because, yeah, from what, I certainly have heard from previous contestants, especially in the new era, it certainly is a rule that is enforced, but there are always
Hmm.
moments. Certainly when I talk with these contestants in the preseason, they talk about, making gestures to each other. I know that part of Katora and Sabaya's, meet cute was the fact that they talked in the bathroom at Ponderosa, basically being like, I got you. I think this definitely was a case of like bending so far until things were broken, to the point where, Rob, I heard rumors of like them passing notes to each other. Like this was incredibly over the line. They were all given a warning, as Jeff confirms in this interview. And F around and find out, like they chose to do this. It grants an opportunity to Jason and MC. I think that, it does create a very
Yeah.
interesting vibe with not only this tribe, but this cast in general. For what it's worth, I was there on the first day. Jeff did tell the cast, like, just so you know, we're good. Like, it's okay. We're not starting off on the wrong foot. It had to happen, but now we're here. So I don't think there's any sort of like oddness about it. But I do think, especially newbie casts moving forward, I think there now is going to be this example to point to of like, make sure you don't talk to each other. Basically the one thing you're not allowed to do, because look at what happened to these people.
But how freaking stupid do you have to be? With all due respect to our Survivor 49 contestants that we didn't get to meet, where you're passing notes to each other. Why? For what? Like, hey, if we're on a tribe together, you and me, we're good. I got you. You could just say that to the person. What does it mean? Like, oh, I got the note from this guy at Ponderosa, so we're so good now.
Yeah, it felt like, again, very much kind of flying in the face of what they were trying to do and making sure, again, they set up things to be on a relatively equal footing ground for
Mhm.
everybody. And the fact of the matter is, again, I don't know if there was any last minute shufflings all over the place, but if we are to believe that Jason and MC were these two people's direct replacement, they would have been on the same tribe, which I think probably also contributed to the decision, right? Was this idea of like, they are essentially made an explicit alliance together and they would be on the same tribe together, even if they were on separate
Yeah.
tribes. The fact that they would eventually meet each other at the merge maybe is kind of a recipe for disaster.
It's just dumb, and I guess it's just sort of like big brain thinking when you're in Ponderosa. Oh, if I could just get this word to this person, then that's going to set my whole game up. But it doesn't matter. None of this stuff at Ponderosa really is, other than like giving people like a total bad vibe, the ick while you're at Ponderosa. None of this stuff actually matters in terms of what you're going to do. So these people played themselves.
Exactly. But this creates a really, as I mentioned
Forget
before,
going to the journey. You screwed yourself.
you gave away your vote essentially by
Mhm.
eliminating yourself from the game. But I do think that this creates such a unique dynamic in that Jason and MC, they were basically confirmed to be alternates. They take the cast photo that showcases who the alternates are and who isn't. And now they're getting brought in. I think we can certainly talk about how much is this going to bond them together. There will be someone who is also a former alternate herself
Yeah.
on this tribe that could be bonded by there as well. So as much as this
Alliance name, the alternates.
exactly, a control alt delete, if you will. But yeah, I do think that shout out to someone in the comments who posted that during our cast reveal podcast. I cannot take credit for that, but I do think that as weird as a situation this might be on paper, and it's like, oh no, Jason and MC are automatically off on the wrong foot. Candace gets voted off first on Blood versus Water because of this. I think given the circumstances, and especially given the fact that they have each other on this tribe, not to forecast too much because we'll do that down the line, I don't think they're in as much hot water as the situation might assume.
Okay, let's talk through these 6 players, Mike, and who is up first?
Well, let's continue on this alternate train, shall we? Alternate track, I should say.
Alternate reality.
Exactly, because we are talking about someone who might know his way around some AR games. Not to assume it too much, but it is Jason Truel. So Jason is 32 years old, originally from Anaheim, California, currently lives in Santa Ana, California. He is listed as a law clerk, but of course, one of the big stories he talked about with me is that at the time he was filming, he was in transition between a couple of jobs. Of course, Jason graduates with a degree in, math and physics, pours acid into vats for a little while, a couple of odd jobs, becomes a software engineer at Google. But Rob, upon the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 2020, Jason did say Ruth Conda forever and decided to become inspired enough to try to, do some good, be the good he wishes to see in the world and become a lawyer. And so he's currently a law clerk right now.
Wow. Okay. So he's a law clerk. And then he has this video game background also.
Yeah, so Jason is a prominent member of the Super Smash Brothers community. He and his fiance organize these big events and tournaments, and so he's relatively well known there. And of course, what brought him onto the show and into the show in the first place is Kenny Huang, who is a prominent Smash member in and of himself. Kenny shouted him out when the cast was released. So yeah, now we have to wait another, 17 years before we see another Smasher get cast on Survivor too?
You don't know that.
You never know. It could be a season coming up. Again, 51 might see the return of themes.
Yeah. Mike, so it occurred to me while I was watching these, I feel like that maybe, and we've been doing this for so long, and we put so much importance on everybody's game plan and what they're doing. But then I almost feel like that when the game starts, that I feel like that what they said to you is not nearly as important as how they said it and how they interact with each other. And so I was like, but Mike sits with them. Mike, what was your vibe of Jason when you got to sit down with him? Because I think that's the thing that comes through. I feel like that people, they have all these strategies that they tell us, and they almost never actually do what they say they're going to do. But I think it's really more about how they make the other people feel.
Oh, F my drag, right? No, I totally understand that. Listen, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, to quote Mike Tyson, or is it Brett? So I very much understand that concept. And so for what it's worth, it's tough to sort of answer that question specifically from the perspective of the Jason interview, because Jason was my first interview. And again, Jason is doing this interview under the assumption that he is not a part of the cast of Survivor 49. I do interviews with the alternates as well. Luckily, in this case, just in case anything might happen like this. But, the chat that I had with Jason, I don't think he was expectedly all right, and I'm going to go out and do this. So I do feel like I really liked talking with Jason, because I think if you're asking about the tone that I got from the conversation, I think Jason is probably the most strategically oriented player we have this season. I think he's an incredibly passionate fan of the game, and in particular from the gameplay aspect. I think there's a lot of, again, incredibly animated people talking about this show and why they want to be a part of it. We'll talk about it with the next person in Kristina. But Jason is somebody I think who probably espoused the most like explicitly strategic things about the game, right? His Survivor hot take was that he doesn't want to go for the idols. He feels like the vote steals and the vote blocks are the more important thing between the small numbers that usually exist in the game and the fact that the people with idols are targeted more. I think that's actually a really good take. And I think that does serve as a larger microcosm of like the way Jason views this game, which is very cerebrally. And
Yeah.
that makes sense, again, given his incredibly academic background. But it's a very unique tone, I think, for this season, which I think is a very emotionally intelligent cast. I think a lot of people talked about, their strengths and weaknesses being like, I have so much empathy for people. I love to connect with people. I'm very socially minded. Not to say that Jason won't be, certainly, but I do think he was one of the people in this cast who was more game forward than a lot of other people in 49.
Yeah. And I like how you put that as seems like a very cerebral thinker. Do you feel like that's something that could be a turn off to the other players?
I think it's something that could help in the pre-merge. I think not only from a challenge perspective and like you're looking at the biggest shoe-in to do the puzzle on basically every challenge, I think just purely from an optics perspective almost. But I think it could be one of the biggest things to bite him in the post-merge. And I think that Jason is going to try to present this very like goofy energy of like, he said he has small guy energy that
Yeah.
like, he's very unsuspecting. He likes
It's a
to,
nice way to put that.
he likes to again make himself feel vulnerable in front of people. He was tripping at in the pre-game. We're not talking about what Sage did before her time on season 49, but I do think that there can definitely come to a point in the post-merge, especially if Jason is able to exercise these cerebral skills when it comes to planning moves. I think he is someone who could be capable of doing like a Kyle and Camilla move that they did twice over in 48. But I think that's something that could very easily put a big old arrow above his head, like he's choosing a Smash Bros. Main, as like, okay, this is somebody that is a big threat to your game because he can outthink you at every turn.
Mike, who was Jason feeling good about or bad about?
Well, of course, Jason had probably the most unique way to classify these people than I had ever heard, which is, I can't remember. Maybe it was Alex said that this guy just has his head down, playing video games the entire time when like actually Jason was categorizing his opponents and how he thinks about them into boxes in a Pokemon game. Never would have thought the Pokemon company would have been able to do that. Jason wins. Maybe he owes them some restitution there. But he said he was
They're
picking
hard up. They could use the money.
exactly. Listen, they're on dire straits right now. Have you played Scarlet and Violet? But Jason said that he was getting good vibes from Kristina, who's on his tribe, Shannon, who is not on his tribe, but certainly could be from a merge setting. And he was picking up like bad vibes from not on his tribe, but you could see sort of again the people he's eyeballing in terms of possible threats, which are Jake and Rizzo. He said that he felt that Jake was the type of person that like if he was on a tribe with him would make everything about himself, which I honestly don't think is Jake, but I could understand based on again the just general nonverbal perception of him. And he tells a story about Rizgod where Rizgod was reading this, pretty comprehensive book and didn't clock the fact that everyone could see what he was reading. And so he very quickly
I was
away.
trying to follow the Rizgod story. So, what was this book that he was? Because you would feel like that this would have come up a little bit more. That Rizgod is somebody who I think also probably puts a lot of thought into what he's going to be reading at Ponderosa.
I don't know. Remember, Rizgod told me in my interview that he's like, yeah, he didn't really expect to like have nothing with him. He said he didn't bring any music. He said he didn't bring any books, so I don't know if he like found this at the bookshelf at Ponderosa or if he was,
And what was the
maybe
book?
stretching the truth. So I think it was called How Champions Communicate. That's the
Yeah.
way that the Jason title. It's clearly like a very tactically branded title.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a Derek Jeter autobiography or anything
Exactly,
like that.
by El Capitan. But yeah, I think that
How champions communicate.
I
Let's
mean,
see.
that feels like almost like an AI generated title for a Survivor book, right? Like if you tried to put in a prompt of give me a book title of what a Survivor winner would write, How Champions Communicate would probably be top of the list.
I see How Champions Think is a
Yeah,
book
maybe it's something like that.
in sports and life. Okay, maybe.
I mean, for what it's worth, this could have been the very beginning of Ponderosa. Because, yeah, as you mentioned, nobody else is really clocking this from Rizzo. But apparently, Jason did spot him reading it. And the next time he saw the man, the myth, the legend, R-I-Z-G-O-D, Riz God, he's gone illiterate and has put the book away. But again, I think that shows that I could see a world that, like, if Jason and Rizzo both make the merge, that they could, like, do a neither can live while the other survives, right? That we go full Survivor superfan Highlander and be like, all right, only one of us can get away with this unsuspecting perception. One of us has to go.
Could be bad news for Rizzo. Okay.
So, other than that, I could see a world where, again, maybe because of Jason's incredibly passionate way of talking about the game, it could be something that puts him as an immediate threat on his tribe's radar. And especially if Hina is losing early on and they want to vote based on strength, I think Jason would probably be one of the physically weaker members of this tribe. Though again, I think he maybe has some of the best puzzle skills just naturally baked in. So there could be a world where he goes early just based on sticking out. But we'll get into these dynamics. I do think he has a natural connection with MC. I do think he could be connected to
Because they're
Kristina
alternates.
because they're alternates. I think he could be connected to Kristina. I think he could be connected to Steven as well. Like, I think this is a guy who, again, with a lot of these socially forward players, I think they're looking for somebody to be the numbers guy. I think they're looking for that Steven to their JT in a manner of speaking. Like, I want someone to think through the Drew to their Austin, maybe. And I think Jason would be able to provide that to them until they get to an inevitable point in the post-merge where they say, okay, this guy's way too powerful. We can't let him go any further.
Okay, Mike, who's up next after Jason?
All right, after Jason, we are going to the
Kristina.
oft-mentioned Kristina Mills, aka, and I'm not just saying this outright. She herself confirmed it in her bio. Close enough. Welcome back, Cerebral Fields.
Okay, here she is. And Kristina, who was somebody that we've heard the name a lot, or KM, where people seem to have very good vibes about her. So the vibes are immaculate here for Kristina as she's impressed almost everybody at Ponderosa.
Yeah, so Kristina is 36 years old, originally from Houston, Texas, currently lives in Edmond, Oklahoma, something that she certainly talks about as maybe an experience that has informed, being a bit of a stranger in a strange land or, not feeling necessarily comfortable to be entirely yourself. And she is an MBA career coach. So she originally worked as an engineer, in corporate America. Now instead advises people on a one-to-one basis as to what to do outside of grad school. And so Kristina is somebody who, I don't know, you just feel it. I certainly felt it when talking to her. Like, I very much understand. Again, I was not there in Ponderosa, but I could very much understand the energy that people were picking up. I think, again, not unlike a Cerebral Fields, I think she is incredibly warm. She's incredibly friendly. She's very relatable, despite the fact that she has gone through so much tough stuff in her life the past 5 years specifically. I think she kind of approaches it with such an air of positivity at the same time. And even just like that laugh, that's something that can immediately get someone onto your side. So I do think maybe unlike Jake, where we talked about how he'd be able to really overcome the preseason perception people had of him and really impress, this is somewhere where on the other side, she's going to completely satisfy, I think, a lot of what people assumed her to be.
So we know she's going to come in. She's going to be likable. People want to work with her. Do you get the sense that the challenges are going to be an issue for her?
So that's what she admits. She says that she's not exactly the most physically minded person. That could be the case. I mean, the thing about these challenges, again, I've been saying it a bunch, is physical strength really only comes into play with that first immunity challenge where there's almost always a component of like lugging something. I really do feel like, maybe people can fact check on me, I feel like afterwards in like episodes 2 through 5, we get more like there's swimming challenges, there's more dexterity based challenges of carnival games, something that Kristina did practice. So it always feels like short-sighted logic to me to like vote off the physically weakest person in the after the first challenge, because it's not like we're exactly going to touch upon that again. But like Jason, she could be somebody that if they want to put forward this keep the tribe strong mentality early on, it could be the case. But again, not to keep making this comparison, but we say that about Cerie Fields all the time. And time again, even when she goes to tribal council in the first episode, with the exception of, Exile Island, she's really never on anybody's radar.
Okay. So who is Kristina feeling good about? Who is she vibing with?
Great question. So she is picking people that are not on her tribe. So
Big mistake.
she says that she loves Jeremiah and Alex. Like she really, really vibes with the two of them. That makes sense. I think all of them have some of the most bubbly personalities on this cast. And I would imagine they were giving off that positivity during the preseason as well. She really likes Shannon. I believe Shannon's the one that she described as like the one with the sundress and the Moana-esque necklace. We'll talk about some other necklaces later on here. The person she picked up bad vibes from is Jake. Her and Matt will both mention the fact that Jake has one singular nipple ring, nipple barbell.
She doesn't like that.
I mean, more so I was asking for descriptors, and they both gave that, which honestly makes a lot of sense if he's walking around shirtless and showing that. I don't really understand the choice of only one nipple barbell. I don't know if this was like a Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin situation where it was so painful to get one that he didn't want to get the other one. But listen, if it's something to help him get through that male review that he was doing, let the barbell stay. And he loves lifting barbells too.
Okay, yeah, maybe it means something. It's a meaningful nipple piercing. Mike, Kristina had one of the most out there Survivor hot takes I've ever heard of in the history that you have asked this question. That her hot take was that Sandra should not have won Pearl Islands. Lil, who was voted out third against Sandra and did nothing, should have won the game beating Sandra. That was Kristina's hot take.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lil has now found officially her number one Survivor contestant of all time.
Yeah, that's right. I should have won. She said it's not her fault she had to wear the Cub Scout uniform.
That I do agree with. That I think the stranded with the clothes on your back thing. I mean, for what it's worth, maybe Lil should have gone full OT and just sold her Boy Scout uniform in the Panamanian village. I'm not sure how many Balboas it would have amassed. That I do agree with. That I think unfortunately she was painted into that perception. I love Kristina. I don't think I could necessarily co-sign all the rest of that.
Yeah, that was a bad take.
Listen. I love it. Like, there were so many people when I posted that hot takes article that were like, "This is what a hot take is."
Yeah, it was the definition of a hot take.
I think if we did a Survivor hot takeoff with all of these ones that I have amassed over the course of the new era, I think this would win the hot takeoff.
Well,
arguably.
you know what the thing is though. Then she went on to say after that the thing she really hates about Survivor players is when they swear on their loved ones, even like if the loved one says, "Oh yeah, you could swear on me." And of course, Sandra does do that in Survivor Pearl Islands, where she is like, "Yeah, I swore on my kids, but like I swore
I'm gonna screw you and Burton."
Yeah, so it seems like she really doesn't like that. So maybe Sandra lost her with that.
Yeah, it feels like, again, Kristina, I think, really associates with a lot of these emotional moments on the show. She says her favorite moment, which was a real throwback deep cut, was when Kelly Wigglesworth won immunity at the final 6 of a Survivor Borneo when everyone wanted her out. So yeah, I think it's something where, I think that she is someone who's going to come in and I think, like Cerie, be able to connect with a lot of people and have them immediately fall in love with her. I think maybe what she's missing is the more, as we spoke about in the last tribe preview, the cutthroat, more strategically forward nature that Cerie has. I don't think she would be someone to plan a 3-2-1. She could absolutely surprise me in that regard. I don't think that makes her any less of a threat, though. I could also, much like Jason, that's what I'll say about this Hina tribe in general, is that this tribe maybe has the most amount of players to me that I could see making a deep run in the game. I know Savannah is my winner pick, but there's a couple here that I nearly made my winner pick just because, especially if Hina is able to do pretty well pre-merge, I could see them going really, really far. Kristina is a prime example of that, but she honestly has 5th place, maybe even 4th place written all over her face for me. Maybe it's a Cerie comparison, but maybe I think it's just this idea that she is going to be so likable so relatable. She has such a great story, talking about everything that she has had to deal with over the past 5 years, and that like Survivor, this is for herself. This is her moment to recharge. And I think that once people sort of reconcile that story and her assumed popularity with people in the game, it's just going to make her a very, very big target in those last few votes, should she make it that far.
Okay, Mike, anything else you want to say about Kristina?
No, I mean, I think that Kristina was, I don't know, she just was such a great presence. I think especially like her vibing with the Lulu of it all was very interesting, right? That like what got her into finally applying to Survivor was like watching what Caleb and Emily were able to personally overcome. I do think Kristina is somebody that we're going to see maybe not go on a journey, but certainly see a journey from over the course of this game.
Mike, who's up next?
All right,
Who's
let's
next is because I'm curious to know, do you put MC next alphabetically or Matt is next alphabetically?
I went with Matt. I mean,
Okay.
either way, Michelle is it's
Because I feel like
MC is
M
Michelle.
period C. I feel like
There's
that
no period. There's no
technically-
period, Rob.
Oh,
No punctuation with MC.
I mean, I know we have a lot of like librarians that listen to RHAP. Would love to know, like, what would you put first alphabetically, Matt or MC?
Let's see. Let's do the Dewey Decimal System for Survivor players.
Because her name's
moving
not
forward.
Mick.
Yeah, it's true, but I think we stand to standardize it a bit more out here. Round the wild, Rob. There's not a lot of writing. You ever see a pen on Survivor? But either way, we're talking about Matt here. We're going to the
Matt
airport.
Williams, not famous baseball player Matt Williams.
For all you know, this kind of looks like an undercover boss disguise. Of like put on this fake beard and these dreadlocks and this Hawaiian shirt.
Go
and
to the
nobody will
airport
recognize
now
you.
and see if anybody will recognize this airport CEO.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the story of Matt Williams, right? Matt is 52 years old. He is originally from Farmington, Utah. And as long as he could remember, Rob, he always wanted to be a stockbroker. And he was part of that rat race for a while, thought greed was good until it wasn't, and decided to leave behind, that profession over a decade ago and started working at the airport. He was drawn in by the allure of free travel, and hopefully his travel out to Fiji will warrant, $1 million paycheck at the end of the day.
Boom. Okay, so here he is, humble ramp agent Matt. And what's your vibe from Matt? I think he's presenting with the Tommy Bahama shirt, and so laid back dreads. So people are just gonna feel like, hey, this guy's chill.
Yeah, and that's very much what he wants to present as, right? He talks himself up being a Trojan horse, much like Ozzy at the merge of Survivor South Pacific, where he says, quote, like, he wants people to think he's just a funny old fat guy. He's no threat. Keep him around. He catches fish. I don't think so. But I do think that Matt very much wants to present himself, especially as the oldest person on this tribe, oldest person in the game, as like, listen, I'm here to just make some friends, catch some fish, make everybody happy, really concealing the more stealthy strategic background that made him, a stockbroker for, the better part of his life. And he is able to tout that, he is someone who admits he grew up hunting and fishing. Like, he is very outdoorsy. So I think he would be someone to like spend the first 2 days of the game just gathering innumerable amounts of firewood. The downside, Rob, is that he also seems like somebody who, in between firewood trips, would absolutely go scouring the jungle for idols.
Okay. So who is Matt vibing with?
So Matt has a couple of people that are on his list. Good vibes, Jake. He's on the positive side for Jake, but more pronounced.
So polarizing, Jake.
I mean, again, the image that he presents, he is the one to really look at just in terms of like how he pops out. But like bad vibes, exactly. Bad vibes is more prescient at the moment. He's not picking up great vibes from Sophie S.
Is that the light clip lady?
Yes, it's the one where, as you mentioned, they are, hanging out in this tent in Ponderosa. And apparently, like, they wake up at like 3 a.m. to get on these boats to arrive on the island. It's a long, long day. And so sitting in the darkness of this tent, she turned on her book light one day, and he was taken a bit aback by, That's shown a light, perhaps, on how he feels about her.
Okay.
Definitely,
Now, Mike,
very, very unique assumptions, though, considering that I asked to describe her, and he believes that she's wearing a necklace that has Santa Claus written on it.
And it does not.
It says her name, which is Sophie.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. So now there's two Sophies. Is this the Sophie that's on his tribe or the other Sophie?
It's the Sophie that's on his tribe.
Oh boy. Who's on the naughty list?
Yeah, exactly. And he looks like Santa. Maybe they should have honestly been partners in crime, right? He's got the Santa beard. He looks like kind of like Rastafarian Santa.
Oh.
So yeah, that will be something that might lead to, I would say, a little friction early on. But again, Matt is so easygoing. And there's
Except
this weird...
if you shine that freaking light at 3 o'clock in the morning and read your book.
Luckily, no electricity, unless Sophie's like taking a little torch and reading her tree mail, her idle clue at night to wake Matt up. But I do think that Matt really is sort of as easygoing as he presents. I mean, he quite literally during my interview says, like, I hope to leave this game with 17 new friends. He admits that, you know, one of his downsides is he might be too loyal and honest to people. But the other side of things, and this is where I have the most concern for Matt, is that I could totally see a world where, again, he is sort of put in this Mike Turner light as like, here's the older...
Don't put him in the light.
Exactly. Ugh, keep him out of there. He's this loyal, dependable guy who's just is spending all day taking care of us. He's not, you know, outwardly strategic. He'll vote wherever we want him to vote. But this is a guy who, when I ask, like, you know, are you going to incorporate aisles and advantages into your game? Answered, is that even a question?
Mm-hmm.
This guy is going to go aggressive when it comes to trying to incorporate everything he can into his survivor toolbox. I mean, he has plenty of places to hide it considering the volume of his hair. And I think that is going to be a big concern because I think for as much as he wants to present this persona of laid back, easygoing guy who's going to work on the shelter and not be considered dangerous in any other regard, this could be something that immediately contests that.
This totally looks like a guy that would have an idol.
Exactly. It's just got that idle behavior on him.
Yeah, he seems like a guy who'd be like out in the woods looking for an idol.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely think that this is the type of person that would have an advantage.
Yeah, and so I think that is going to be a problem because, again, if you're trying to present yourself as like, I'm not a threat, I've got nothing, I'm just here for a good time, and I'm here to help you have a good time, then when you see him go off and search for things or he tells you that he has something, that immediately tells you like, oh no, this guy is here to play. Now, then the converse of that as well is that I do think Matt is surprisingly physical. You know, he says a number of times, you throw bags at the airport for 11 years and say that doesn't work on your core strength. Like, I do think he is someone who could be one of the bigger physical assets for this tribe. So again, if they're valuing that type of stuff early on, that and the camp life might be enough to keep Matt safe. But if he does go as, you know, balls to the wall as he wants to in terms of trying to grab any advantage that he can, this could put him in a bit of hot water early on. He could be booking his departure back to the U.S. sooner rather than later.
Mike, anything else about Matt?
No, I mean, deep pull from Matt mentioning Lisbeth from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, bringing that back into the conversation for the better part of a decade. I haven't heard anyone mention that work in since 2016, maybe.
Okay. Mike, finally, let's talk about MC.
Yes, controversially, some thought she would come before Matt.
Not MC Cullah.
No, definitely not. Definitely one of the more colorful. We'll see if she's one of the more colorful characters in this cast. We're talking about Michelle Chukwujekwu, also known as MC. MC is 29 years old, originally from Saxa, Texas. Currently lives in San Diego, California. She talks about that a lot in my interview, that she kind of just packed up, made the choice, no secure employment, but decided that she fell in love with the city and this is where she wanted to go. And that kind of informs why she's here on Survivor as well, considering that MC is maybe one of the newest Survivor fans proportional to playing that I've ever interviewed. It's probably 6 or so months, maybe a little bit more, maybe several months prior to her being out there, that she watched her first episode of
Yeah.
Survivor. She just wanted something to talk about with friends. She fell in love with the game, binge watched half the seasons, became an alternate, flew out to Fiji, and now she's on the show proper.
So here she is. She is the recovering people pleaser.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see how much of a relapse this is on the island. It's tough, when you have flesh and blood people in your face being disappointed with something that you did. It's really tough to not satiate that part of yourself. But MC has this really interesting background in that, she is she works a lot in fitness. She is a trainer. She gets up and does like
Yeah.
CrossFit at 5 a.m. every day. But she also has this sales background to her as well. She compares herself to Cody in my interview, and it's a little bit apples and oranges. Maybe Matt has more of the live-in vibe than Cody does, but I actually can see it a bit in that, again, much like Cody, I think MC will be able to hide this sales background that can help her from an interpersonal perspective.
She had another very spicy hot take.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've certainly heard this a couple times, right? That either the new era is as good as, the previous 40 seasons. She says outright it's better.
Yeah. No better way to demonstrate you are a recovering people pleaser than to come out with the take, new era is better than the old era.
Is this count as going cold turkey? Say the thing that might alienate the fan base the most.
Yeah, because I kind of get like, hey, the new era, there's a lot to like here. Like I could get like listen, the new era gets a bad rap. I could see that take, but she says the new era is actually better than the old era.
I mean, again, MC seems like somebody who has like formulated her own opinions because she is such a new member of this community. I don't think she's necessarily tuned into what a hot take might be. She's one of the only people I've encountered who said that she was rooting against the people in Operation Italy, that she was that she touted it as one of her favorite moments, but she wanted Andy and Genevieve to lose. So clearly MC is going to go her own path as the track star she is.
Okay, so she's going against the grain already. She's going to go on journeys. She doesn't care.
Yeah, and so I think that
she's playing with house money. I was an alternate.
I mean, that's a great thing that I'm actually really a great point that I'm intrigued to talk with Jason and MC about is like, again, just the absolute whiplash of having a headspace of like, all right, this isn't my time. This was a great first time out, but I'll get him in 51, only to find out like, no, it's happening now. Does it give you sort of that license, to your point, Rob, to be like, I don't care. I wasn't even supposed to be here today. So like, I'm just going to play with this opportunity that is given to me right now. Because I do think, we'll talk about speculation on this tribe later on, I do think MC might be the hub of Hina. Because I think
hub of Hina.
I think she is somebody that a good amount of people have liked. I think across all tribes, a lot of people have positively clocked her. I think due to, again, her strength physically, I think that she is going to be somebody that will be considered one of the biggest assets of Hina in the pre-merge. And I think her personality, again, is like so down to earth. I could see a world where maybe, much like Matt, she does hit the ground running. Again, makes sense given her track background and decides
every day she hits the ground running.
Exactly. To be like, all right, I got to start hunting for things. But I could easily see MC as somebody in the initial days, like sit in the back pocket, really make bonds with people. And I think that story that her and Jason have does endear herself to this particular tribe as well. So I think that MC could be one of the safest people in this pre-merge scenario. Much like I've said with Kristina and Jason, post-merge might be a different story because, again, I think a lot of these physical challenges, these individual challenges are going to be tailored to MC's skill set. I think this could easily become like a Ryan Madrano or Kyle Ostwald situation where it's just like, she's by far the biggest challenge threat right now. She's easy pickings.
Mike, anything else you want to add about MC?
Yeah, so MC is picking up good vibes from one of her fellow tribe members, Sophie S. And she's also picking up good vibes from Jake. So, well, it'll be interesting to see. We talked before about like, will there be, a strong alliance come the merge? I don't necessarily think so. This is a very
an alliance of the strong.
Yes, compared to 48. But I could see a world where like Jake and MC get on the same page. Because again, as I mentioned in my Keller Tribe preview as well, they are maybe two of the most locked in, safe people just on paper to make it to the merge.
All right. Let's get to our S names and let's start with Sophie.
Yes.
Sophie, aka Santa Segretti. Segretti Santa. That's what they call it back in Italy.
Now, certainly I've heard people, because I've just gone with like Sophie B, Sophie S. I have no idea how they're going to just give them distinct names on the
Santa.
show. That's the thing. We might have given her the Santa nickname. This could have been like, this is like a Tarzan versus Troyzan type of thing. I think some people were calling Sophie B Sophie, just given the name that the way
like
that
the stadium.
exactly. And she hopes to be like a ram and just batter her way through this game. But Sophie Santa herself, it's a seasonal occurrence, it seems, much like the Jolly Man, that she comes around to Fiji, as Sophie was the female alternate for Survivor 48. I interviewed her twice in less than a year, as she came right back out for Survivor 49. I thought she had some really interesting perspectives as to how her headspace changed between seasons, that she kept up the physical prep, but specifically for her, she realized, and look, watching previous seasons is always good to, like, bone up on the game a little bit, remember how things can typically be structured. But I think she has a very wide open, much like Rizzo's book. She's an open book when it comes to,
a lit well book.
Exactly. She's reading these contestants to filth, Rob. But this idea
who's
that
on the nice list and who's on the naughty list.
But it's this
we'll
idea.
Find out.
Yeah, maybe it was that she was making her list for that year, and Matt just sort of like caught her out. But I think that Sophie basically figured out this idea of, listen, I could watch as many past seasons as I want to, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not playing with any of those casts. I'm playing with these people. I think that's a very salient argument. And as much as, again, I loved Rizgod comparing each and every one of his competition to a Survivor player, it's a fantastic exercise. It doesn't need to necessarily be something to be executed because, again, these are distinctly different people from any of the hundreds that have competed in Survivor prior.
It's a really good point, because I think sometimes and we do this a lot in the preseason of like, okay, this person is a Cody. Okay, this person is a Soda. Okay, that's the new Jesse. And then it's like, okay, well, now we don't really get to know these people because we're just like, okay, well, that's the new Parvati. Okay, so now we're just going off of, in our head, what that person is like. And we're not really getting to know the new people.
Yeah, exactly. So Sophie is coming in, again, with that very fresh mindset. It certainly helps, again, that she has been through this process before. She kind of gets to go through her own alternate scenario, in a manner of speaking, in that she got to sort of like project herself onto Survivor 48 and then be able to ascertain from there sort of a more open strategy of how to approach this game. I will say, Savannah, again, was my winner pick. Sophie Santa S, very close behind. I think Sophie S is very well set up to make a deep cut in this game, because she is somebody who, again, not to say it's a 1-for-1 success rate in terms of like alternate pipeline to coming back and doing well. But when you look at like, obviously what happened with Rachel, when you look at someone like Shaheen, for example, even someone like Janine in 43, like I do think there is at least a little bit of a small advantage when it comes to
Janine 43 was an alternate?
She was an alternate for 42.
I didn't know that.
Kelly Nalbandian, another good example of like, going out there and being able to at least like experience the hurry up and wait period, to be able to then watch a season and gauge your like preseason perceptions versus what actually happened. It is a bit of an exercise as to like how you can adjust yourself and how you can sort of like read, for lack of a better term, this entire pregame scenario. Now, what's interesting from Sophie's perspective is that I do feel like Sophie S has been mentioned a lot, maybe not sometimes in a positive light, for lack of a better term, sometimes not. I think part of it is because, and again, this was a very unusual pregame situation, and maybe it was because of that. Like Sophie S was a very strict rule follower. And again, maybe it's because she's been through the process once before as well, but it seemed like with some open communication happening, she was someone who was more so not giving people a lot. And so while it might have worked against her here, I do think that she is someone who is amiable enough that like once she actually gets to the beach, I think any sort of misgivings people might have about her is going to go out the window.
If you thought she was a rule follower then, you should see her now after she watched two people get kicked out of Ponderosa.
Exactly. So Sophie, I think, has a really interesting set of skills, obviously coming in from her job. Actually, a little bit about Sophie S that I did not talk about. She is 31 years old, originally from Darnestown, Maryland, currently lives in New York City, is a strategy associate for YouTube. talks a little bit about, much like Richard Hatch maybe espoused in the Borneo premiere, about how corporate America maybe does work out here in the bush, Sue Hawk, and that she does feel like, being able to strategically work with and around people could be something that carries over. She says, Rob, that she is, quote, handy as hell. So I think maybe if they decide to get rid of a Matt early on, she could be someone that maybe steps up in terms of like as a provider. I think the one thing, honestly, working against Sophie for me is like if she is too outspoken. Sophie professes herself as a very expressive person. She compares herself to Carolyn in that regard, and that she does wear her emotions on her sleeve. I think there could be a world where like, it's almost like Annika, downside in that, like, if something doesn't go her way, or if she decides to, again, speak up a little too much at camp, she could be perceived as like, okay, she is someone who's really calling the shots. Let's cut her feet out from under her.
Did she have any people she was really vibing with?
Yeah, so one of them was MC. And we talked about this before. Again, I think that Sophie very easily could lock in with Jason and MC just in the initial days based on this alternate thing. She finished our interview by her being like, I can't wait to meet the alternates because I know how tough that experience is.
Wow.
Well, be careful what you wish for, Sophie, because it just might get it. They're playing with you, living alongside you. So I think she is going to connect with them there. Also, I think, something that MC clocked about Sophie is that she felt like she had an athletic background. Sophie does profess herself as a bit of a competitor. She is someone who has, I think, played soccer in the past, something that I think could also really help her in individual challenges and be a bit unsuspecting too. She also mentioned Annie. Very interesting. She mentioned that it's not really bad vibes, but the people she feels most threatened by from her competition are people like Nicole and Kristina. Basically feeling like she sees how they're sort of like what they're presenting and how they're being perceived by people. Yeah. And she sees that
that's my lane.
Exactly. The most direct threat, or Elaine, if you will, speaking of that likability to the game that she wants to play. So maybe that could lead to, like, again, much like I was talking about with Rizzo and Jason, could we get that sort of battle between Sophie and Kristina come the post-merge? I will also say as well, I don't want to be Yenta here. I don't want to match make, but we talked last time about how Alex's boss, right, said, you better go on Survivor and come home with a wife. Slim pickings, I would say, that has run a little dry this season before you throw Rome into it. There's maybe one exception here in Sophie S, because in her CBS video, she talks a lot about going on the New York dating scene and, how that was much like a fateful journey, a roll of the dice. So, maybe it won't be until a swap or a merge, but I don't know. Could be something happening here, Rob.
Okay. All right. One more person to get to. Let's talk about Steven. Steven, and he is a rocket scientist.
Yes, not only do you love a Steven, Rob, you also love a rocket scientist. So he really has all the makings of a Rob Cesternino favorite.
Now, we don't get a ton of STEVEN.
No. Yeah. I mean, we've had like Steve Wright in the past.
Steve Wright and Steve Chicken Morris, right?
Yep. So I think that's basically it. We've been more largely regarding the PH Stevens for a long time, but we shall see how basic the PH of Stevens game is.
Okay. Tell us about Steven Ram.
So Steven Ram, not to be confused with SoFi Stadium or SoFi Belardi.
Sometimes if you don't have enough RAM, you need to do Control-Alt-Delete.
Exactly. So Steven is 35 years old, originally from Littleton, Colorado, currently lives in Denver, though I do believe with the recent news about NASA's, main...
Oh, he's moving?
Yeah, being moved out of Colorado. He might be moving to Alabama soon. But he is a rocket scientist. I believe his formal job title is like spacecraft systems architect. So essentially, he is in charge on a daily basis of managing a bunch of different projects, managing a bunch of different subsystems in a spacecraft to make sure that everything is humming along fine. So missions succeed and people, end up surviving in the various missions that he goes on. And so we shall see, if this one small step he takes onto the beach is one giant leap to $1 million.
What was the vibe you got from Steven?
Steven, it's understandable that he has a golden retriever because he exudes that energy like no other contestant I encountered in this season. He is incredibly excitable, incredibly energetic, very passionate, very positive. And I think it's kind of like two sides of the same coin with Jason, in that like Jason, you could tell how much love he has for Survivor and how much he loves talking about the game. Steven is admittedly a very new fan to Survivor. He's a COVID baby. He discovered it when Rupert stole the shoes, a number 24 moment in Survivor history as voted on by the fans this summer. And so he's not exactly coming in with like, I just love every ounce of this game. Steven just kind of loves life, it seems. And this is a guy who has been through a lot of ups and downs. His life sort of reached the stratosphere when he discovered only about 10 or so years ago about the hearing loss that he has lived with his entire life. And I think a lot of his journey throughout a lot of his 20s and 30s is this idea of finding the edges. He hasn't found the edge of space yet, but he wants to be able to sort of like find his comfort zone and then strictly push past that. And I think he is someone who's looking to do that in the boundaries of the game of Survivor as well.
Yeah. And he loves Rupert.
He loves Rupert. I do remember, Rob, I'm not sure if you remember this.
I love Rupert. I love you too, Steven. If you were on my tribe, I'd give you a big hug and a kiss. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, it would be like the Krista and Rupert, right? Like, oh, schmoopy boopy. I mean, listen, we know that Rupert is very passionate with his PDA.
But you better not lie to me. I hate liars.
So yeah, Steven is, I remember, Rob, I feel like this was a few years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Do you remember a commercial for the NFL that was linked with Survivor where there was like an NFL fan who named their dog Rupert?
Yeah, I thought it was a cat.
Maybe it was a cat named Rupert. So Steven is, I guess, the exact opposite of this. But again, he has such dog person energy. I mean, he talked about this story, right, where like he was in a YouTube video for his work and someone said like, when did they hire Ryan Reynolds? And like, honestly, I really do see it. I think it's not exactly like, unfortunately, the smarmier side of Ryan Reynolds that we have seen in recent years, but it's more so this like very energetic persona. And he's able to joke around a lot as he does with me, but I feel like he has more of a goofy, quirky Ryan Reynolds energy than the more like sardonic Ryan Reynolds energy that people have been associating him with as of late.
Okay. Now, I know somebody that he has good feelings about because they remind him of Rupert.
Yes, him and Matt. So basically he's like, listen, if he's going to be the tribe provider, I am all for it. He says he looks like he basically came from like a yacht club or yacht beach.
Okay.
I don't know if Matt
try a different method of transportation.
I don't know. Matt would be able to be let within like 30 feet of a yacht club. He'd be very much like the no shirt, no shoes, no service.
I think he has like the Tommy Bahama shirt that you might see like at a yacht club, maybe.
Oh yeah, it's very much giving Margaritaville.
Yeah, Margaritaville, but probably not as many white guys with dreadlocks at the yacht club.
So Steven also touted, he didn't really give a lot of bad vibe people, which also, again, speaks to, I think, the positive persona that he is curating here. He says that he's getting good vibes from Matt, from Nicole, from Annie, from Nate, who he compares to Lawrence Fishburne. And I think that is something that, again, is going to endear Steven to this tribe, is that I think that he is going to be like maybe one of the biggest tribe motivators in that he is so happy-go-lucky that I do think even if this tribe is down and out, I do think he is someone who is going to try to, motivate them to launch out of the pad, to try to get some lift off the ground, considering that everything that he has been through. And again, just like the way that he regards so much, I think that he is somebody who, again, would not necessarily be labeled as like the biggest strategic threat out of this tribe or even this cast. But like I said about Kristina, I think a major downside could come at the merge where it's like, Steven is so endearing. Everybody likes him. Why are we letting this guy get to the final three?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mike, is there anything else you want to say about Steven, or can we start to put this puzzle together?
I mean, I did like, as much as I'm saying that maybe Steven's not like as game forward, I did like his one-for-one comparison to his Jade job about off-ramping or planning for redundancies, especially in a game like Survivor. You're hoping that things might not pop up from a twist perspective or a people perspective where you're saying, props, we have a problem. But Steven's day-to-day essentially is crisis management, right? Is about thinking in the moment or creating backup plans on backup plans of, okay, if this thing is faulty, how do I do this to compensate for that? I think that's going to work incredibly well
Yeah.
for him because, again, especially if you are coming into a seasonal setting where so much can be so up in the air, if this is more Survivor 47 than Survivor 48 in terms of things changing on the day, on the hour, on the minute, on the second, this is a guy who I think is probably most likely to land on his feet and come up with something quick on the fly to save his own skin over maybe some of his fellow competitors.
Can keep a cool head, whether it's a live tribal or some sort of lost his vote, and can pick up the pieces.
Exactly. Like he has redundancies to hopefully not become redundant in the game.
Yes. Okay. And I thought that you and Steven were really vibing on all of his black hole analogies as being at the center of the universe that could be this tribe.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say like, oh, he's a charisma black hole because I feel like usually that means the exact opposite, right?
Yeah.
But like, he makes sense from his perspective, considering that like he could be this sort of gravitational well of charisma to attract people in. Of like, oh, I really like Steven. I want to work with Steven. And then once you get too close, it's too late, and your innards get squished from the inside out.
Too bad he wasn't playing last season with Star.
That's very true. Exactly. He would have been the first to say that she went supernova.
Okay. All right, Mike. I'm very excited to try to put this all together. I've got the
Yes.
whiteboard back for the other. I have a whiteboard, but we're not really using it like a whiteboard. We're not usually using
It's more
any
so like
markers.
a placard.
Yeah, I could use it just as like a bulletin board. But here we go. All right, here is. Where do we start, Mike? Do you think that the alternates are where we're gonna end up going with everybody?
I think that is going to be the initial connection. And look, sometimes with these tribes, it really matters who you're vibing with.
Let's keep the wide shot because I think that'll help me be able to have the whole screen in
The
here.
wide
Okay?
board shot.
The
Yeah,
wide board shot. Okay.
I do think that Jason and MC, it's the most natural connection. The two of them have this shared experience that they're going to immediately bond with. And so, again, as I was just mentioning, I think that a lot of like day one alliances maybe go a bit underregarded in New Era Survivor, considering how long these people are in tribe, 3 tribes in the pre-merge. We've only seen 2 swaps. I think if you make a day one connection and it sticks, that can go really, really far in the game. And so I think even if just connecting on a surface level brings these two together, there could be a world where maybe their, priorities vary over the course of the pre-merge. But I think at least initially, these two are going to be thick as thieves.
Okay. And then you want to add to them also the other past alternate.
Yes, I think that especially with Sophie and MC really vibing with each other, I could see them being one of the most locked in pairs on this tribe. So I think that it would only make sense that she would want to work with both of them.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, we have here's Steven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Steven, though, he was vibing with Matt.
Yes, so the two of them could lock in early as a pair. I could easily see Steven be Matt's junior deputy firewood bitch. The only question is, 2 into 6 does not make a majority. And so as we talk about the last piece in Kristina, I do think as much as Sophie is threatened by Kristina, I don't see a world where Kristina wouldn't want to work with MC, with Jason. So I think we could be looking at a 4-2 situation where, it's those 4 early on clicking with each other. And then Steven to a certain extent, but I would say to a much larger extent, Matt would be left on the outs.
Matt is on the outs. He's such an easy guy to get along with.
Yeah, until again they say, like, where's Matt gone? Oh, he's probably looking for an idol. We should probably
looking for the idol.
Yeah, so I think that Matt, unfortunately, whether it's due to demographics, whether it is, again, him going a bit advantage hungry, is someone who could put himself on the outs early on.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there could be another universe, an alternate universe, if you will, where if this tribe starts losing quickly and they say, okay, we need Matt's strength here, then maybe things get flipped. Maybe MC and Sophie jump over to work with Matt and Steven. And
Right.
Jason and Kristina are on the outs.
I know that Jason and MC have the alternate bond, and I'm sure that's going to help. But yeah, if they end up losing a challenge. And I don't know if Jason has any kind of like athletic background. I know you said that he's going to be a help in the puzzles, especially for somebody, MC is a newer fan. Like, is she going to be that loyal where she's an athlete, somebody who I'm sure wants to win? Is she going to be that betrothed to Jason just because they were both the alternates together?
I don't think so. I could see a world where this is like an initial connection, and then if they go to tribal council later on in the pre-merge, like, like I could see, for example, okay, let's say they go to tribal council. It's a very Gata, the yellow tribe from 47 arc, where it's like, okay, first vote is an easy 5-1 to get rid of Matt, or 4-2. And then they like go to tribal council again in episode 5. And then at that point, MC and Sophie jump over with Steven and vote off Jason. Like I could see something that bonds them early on. I don't know if it's ironclad to get them all the way through to the end of the game. I think MC could bond much closer with Sophie or even with Kristina, but it is something to, I think, at least keep Jason safe if there is a vote early on.
We did this on the last one. Could we try to build this differently? Like, let's say, hypothetically, the 3 alternates don't instantly gel, okay? Is there a different scenario that you could build this tribe to have a different 4 ending up being in power?
Yeah, I think it's really simple. I mentioned it before. Just move Sophie and MC down. I think that Sophie and MC may become the people with the most possible movement, I should say, the options in this tribe, and then I imagine they're going to lock in together. And I think, again, they would be both be perceived as assets where they could really go between, assumingly not to pair Kristina and Jason together, but essentially between 2 different groups.
So, okay, Sophie and MC, you see them working with the duo of Steven and Matt?
Yeah, could be the case, especially if, again, they're looking for a keep the tribe strong type of mentality. I think that would immediately put Jason and Kristina on the outs.
Yeah. I have a hard time imagining Kristina on the outs. I feel like that she's in the 4 no matter what.
So do you think it would be, like a 5-1 on Jason, or do you think there's a different configuration here?
Who did Kristina, go back to her, and who was she feeling good about?
Kristina was feeling, it was all people that were not on her tribe. She was feeling good about Jeremiah, Alex, and Shannon.
Does Kristina want to work with a Jason? Do you feel like that the types of people that she wanted to work with, were those the people where, like, was it like the strategy type people that she was feeling good about? I feel like that she's going to say, he looks like the type of person that would lie about his family.
I mean, she wanted good vibes. I think Jason does have good vibes in his own unique way. Like, I think he is a very positive person. Again, he talks about showing that vulnerability, so that might endear him to her. But I could also see a world, where it's like, she wasn't explicitly saying, I need someone brainy who I can pair up with.
Okay. So, most likely, earliest person out of this tribe is who, Mike?
I would say the leader in the clubhouse would be Matt. I think secondarily to what you're outlining right here might be Jason.
Okay. All right.
And I would say tertiary in that could be an outside chance of a Sophie or an MC just really going kind of aggressively buck wild in the game early on, putting a huge target on themselves and getting picked off early.
Yeah. Okay. You think we could see the 3 women together?
I could definitely see that. Yeah. I think I mean, again, Sophie was...
I could kind of see this with Steven being with the 3 women.
Yeah, I could see that too. I think that, I think that Sophie, again, was threatened by Kristina, but I don't think that precludes her from wanting to work with her. I just think it more so means, like,
pre-merge.
Yeah, like when the merge hits, just look out for her. So yeah, I could very easily see this as well. I think I see the 3 women working together more likely than the 3 men would be, just because the 3 men are so different.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see them all in action in but 2 weeks.
I know. Wild, right? Just a fortnight. Not the game
Tell
that Jason
Fortnite, baby.
There we go.
Put the Super Smash Brothers down, okay?
So we shall see who will be dancing over who will be dancing over their competitors, Rob, in just a few months' time. Can't believe we're here. This has been so much fun. I always love getting to re-engage in these conversations, months after talking with them out in Fiji, getting your perspectives on this, Rob, getting everyone else's perspectives. I've loved the comments that we've received so far on all of these interviews, and especially, I mentioned this at the tail end of my Steven podcast, but I have so much gratitude to so many people, to CBS for giving me the opportunity to talk with these people, to you, Rob and Jess and Scott and Sam for facilitating everything behind the scenes, and Jose for like packaging all of these things in a palatable fashion. Putting a video camera out there on the island is a lot harder than it might seem. So for being able to, edit it in a way to make it seem listenable and watchable, and so much gratitude to these contestants. Considering, what they talked about with me. I'm just some jamoke who happens to be in the right time, in the right place. And it honestly always means the world to have these people sit down with me and get the chance to open up with me about so much in their lives.
Give yourself more credit. Jawan had a Mike Bloom impersonator that he spoke to. That's how we started this series.
Yeah, and we ended it sort of on Jason saying that I would be his celebrity loved one, which
wow,
blew my goddamn mind. Like, honestly, it did. Like, it's tongue in cheek, and the question itself is tongue in cheek. You're not meant to look into it really at all, but like, I don't know, that really meant a lot to me. Because again, I'm nobody. I came up with the silly question, and for me to actually be the answer to the silly question, I don't know.
We've come full circle.
Yeah, I think between that and I'll talk a bit more about my experience on Survivor 50 when that time comes. But like, I'm feeling a lot of gratitude this year, I think, for what I have been given the opportunity to be able to do, and it's only through people like you, Rob, to be able to give me the ability to do so in the first place.
Well, Mike, you've made the most of every opportunity, and of course, you mean so much to everybody in the Survivor community. And I'll tell you that I was texting with Shane Powers this weekend, and he said that, I hope I'm not talking too much out of school. He said in text, I really like the guy who's the Survivor encyclopedia. And it took me a second to figure out who it is. He's like, Mike something.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. So even the Shane Powers endorsement comes to you, Mike Bloom.
Oh my God. It's me and that coffee are right there. 1A and 1B in terms of endorsements. That means a lot. No, that honestly means a lot. Oh my God. I had no idea. That's wild. That's wild.
There you go, Mike.
Oh my God. I will also say, moving forward, any Survivor 51 contestants and onwards who say I'm their celebrity loved one, it'll be greatly appreciated, but it'll also be taken, to quote Shane Powers, as sucking kneecaps, just so you all know. Get creative, people.
Get creative. All right, Mike, what's next for you in Survivor 49 and beyond?
Yeah, Infinity and beyond, perhaps, to quote Steven's line of work. So I've got a couple more things. Again, the vast majority of my Survivor 49 preseason content is out there.
Is Buzz Lightyear a colleague, do you think?
I mean, he's a space ranger, no?
He's a toy, Mike.
I believe the word you're looking for is space ranger. And so I do think that, I've got a couple more things to throw out there in the preseason. Just a couple of quotes from my interview with Jeff. I'll have some more stuff to offer. I did talk with Jeff after the first tribal council on the island. I'll offer a lot more once the premiere airs. I think I'll talk a bit more about my experience, what I saw in the first few days, how it compares and contrasts to what the edit was showing. I've got a couple more of these compilation pieces, like I mentioned, where I sort of like sum up what everyone answered for one particular question. Like, I think I'm gonna do a roundup of the what previous twist would you want to bring back. I'll try to. I understand that the good vibes, bad vibes question can be a little tough to discern sometimes, even with descriptors. I'm gonna try to organize it this year in a way where it's like, here's what everyone said about this person, to try to like really collate it into one place.
Here's the good news. For Survivor 50, it'll be easier.
I mean, literally, we'll talk about that again in a few months' time, but it was much, much easier. So I'll try to do that to the best.
Nobody be like, JY is really giving me a weird look.
I mean, listen, you never know what some of the engagement some of these old school survivors may or may not have had with the recent seasons. It's not out of the picture completely, but I've got a lot of other stuff going on, of course, still covering Big Brother. Also ramping up the day after Survivor 49 premieres will be the premiere of The Amazing Race 38, which is our big Amazing Race Big Brother crossover. Going to be doing, of course, a lot of coverage around that, including through the preseason. The reality flash is happening. Of course, Survivor AU versus the World just finished. We did a big finale podcast with Shannon and the recap bitches. I got the chance to talk with Parvati too, another 2-time winner to add to the pantheon of Survivor, about her game. So there is so much stuff going on. And of course, once Survivor 49 starts proper, I'll be doing Exit Press every week and the B&B with Liana as well. You can check out everything I'm doing at a Mike Bloom type. And thank you, Rob, and thank you all, as always, for, much like Steven would say, creating such a stellar preseason.
Okay. All right. It's going to take me a minute when you start quoting Steven for me to not think that you're talking about Fishback, but I will get there.
This could be another, number one Steven. This will be Battle of the Stevens this year.
Number one Steven. Okay. That's going to take a lot of work. All right.
Listen, he could, it's a slow process, right?
Number
it
one
didn't happen
Steven
overnight.
with a V for sure.
Okay, that's that's a starting point, I would say. We'll see how
Okay.
much it lifts into the next atmospheric level.
Stratosphere, yeah. All right, Mike, thank you so much. Great job by you. Amazing
you.
work all preseason long. And of course, we love to hear what you have to say in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye. This is RHAP. We know reality TV.